The Edmonton Oilers pulled out one of their gutsiest and frankly most impressive wins of the young 2024-2025 NHL season Thursday night against the Bruins, and we are here to break it all down on this Friday edition of Locked On Oilers.
You are Locked On Oilers, your daily podcast on the Edmonton Oilers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this Friday edition of Locked On Oilers. I'm your host, Nick Zararis. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On Oilers their first listen of the day. Locked On Oilers, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel, where you can enjoy the NFL season with a big return. New customers can place a $5 bet and get started with $150 in bonus bets. If you win your first $5 bet, visit FanDuel.com to get started. So on today's show, that's one of the best wins of the entire season for the Oilers. Not the most impressive, but frankly, that is a really good win against a pretty good Boston Bruins team. Why Stuart Skinner had one of his best games of the season so far, and what the next 2 days present. The Oilers have games tomorrow night and Sunday night before the Christmas break. So 2 games against lower quality competition after playing a real gauntlet of quality opponents and what that presents. So coming into tonight's game, I was very curious to see what type of energy the Oilers were going to come out with. It was very deflating to lose to the Panthers the way they did on Monday night. You know, it was so deflating. It warranted 2 episodes about a single game in the regular season. But I felt a little concerned that lingering issues, you know, Chris Knobloch himself had said he wasn't particularly happy with the way they played in the third period of the game against Vegas the week prior, the way they conceded 3 goals and let Vegas get back in that game. That didn't sit with him well. Obviously, Monday night blowing a 2-goal lead at home against a team that beat you in the Stanley Cup final, that doesn't sit particularly well with you either. But tonight, I was worried that it could be the start of a funk. And in the course of a long season, you know, you play 82 of these games over 5.5, 6 months. It's normal. You're going to have highs. You're going to have lows. The key, if you're going to be a good team, and I do think the Oilers are a good team, is understanding how to put things in the past while also being able to use that for both motivational reasons and for educational reasons. And to think about it in terms of the motivational, you keep winning games, you keep feeling good about yourself, that's going to push you and enable you to play with a confidence that's going to unlock more of your game, frankly. A confident player is always going to be able to put together a more complete and more impressive game than somebody who's struggling with their game. You know, you think about Zach Hyman prior to his injury, really struggling, 3 goals in his first 20 games. He has 8 goals in the 7 games he's played since coming back from his initial injury, not the broken nose, which he played with tonight with the full fishbowl. But you put that together. Then you occasionally have the bad game. You think about the way that game against Vegas went down the backstretch of the third. You think about Monday against Florida, and it's really easy to start worrying about yourself, thinking, well, do we have issues? Are we as good as we think we are? And the Oilers came out tonight, I will say slow, and I will say tentative. And kudos to the Bruins, who, for their very slow start, lest we forget, they fired Jim Montgomery, who I do think is a quality NHL coach. There's a reason the St. Louis Blues picked him up as quickly as they did. The Bruins fired their coach because everything was going wrong. They couldn't kill penalties. They couldn't score on the power play. They still aren't playing very well on the power play, but this is a team that was dead in the water a month and a half ago, and they are back in a playoff spot right now in the Atlantic Division. They're in pretty good form, and they came out tonight and had a really strong first period. You get up 2-0 on the Oilers early, and we have seen consistently this year, the Oilers, when they have to play from behind for prolonged stretches of time, it becomes really difficult for them to make up deficits because teams are inclined, when they have multi-goal leads, to play a more defensive posture, to sit back, to let the Oilers more or less take pot shots from the points, from the flanks, because they know they're not particularly dangerous. They know that if their goalie has a clear line of sight on them, the goalie's going to be able to get in the way. But tonight, was a really good, hard-fought victory. And the Oilers didn't play really well tonight. You wouldn't draw it up like this if you were trying to piece together a game plan for beating a quality defensive-oriented team. But the simple matter of the fact is you were down 2-0 to a good defensive team with a good goalie. And I know Jeremy Swayman's stats aren't that impressive so far this year, but Swayman has a long track record of NHL success over the last handful of seasons that would qualify him as an upper echelon goalie. You think about his involvement with Team USA stuff, the long-term extension the Bruins agreed to sign him to prior to the start of this season, and the Oilers found a way. And that type of resilience, that ability to plug and chip and keep working at it is something that is really valuable. Finding your way through adversity in the course of a long season, that's admirable. That's a trait that is a strong reflection of the character and, frankly, of the work ethic of guys on the team. When you think about being down 2 goals to a good defensive team and you stick it in your head, we can do this, we can do this, we can do this. We just need one and we are back in this. And Zach Hyman, to his credit, who's been great since coming back from his injury on December 5th, he has 8 goals, in his 7 games since returning, including tonight, the first goal he scored. You get in the game. You get to intermission down 2-1. And then all you need is 1 goal for the hard reset. You get the game fully level again. Everybody starts looking around at each other up and down the bench, patting each other on the thigh, thinking, we can do this. 1 more goal, we are in this game, and then we steal one. And that is a powerful mindset to have as a player, where even if you haven't had your best game, all you need is 1 to get right back in it. And then you feel like you're getting over on somebody, that you're taking advantage of the situation, that you haven't played well, but you still managed to steal something from them. If the Oilers got out of this game with 1 point, they lost in overtime. That still would have been a reasonable outcome for them based on how the first 20 some odd minutes of this game went. The Oilers were really clunky in that first period. If I wrote it down, the Oilers were outshot 11-5 in the first period, and it was really clunky. The Bruins had an 11-7 advantage on high danger chances for the entire game, and at 5-on-5, the Bruins almost doubled. The Bruins almost out expected goal did the Oilers 2-1. I know that was very hard. I'm going to say it again just to make sure I said that correctly. The Bruins had almost twice as many expected goals in this game than the Oilers did, and the Oilers kept themselves in this game. They gave themselves a chance, and they were able to, through their skill and their perseverance, claw this victory out. And that is something that you need your team to have. Coming into tonight, the Oilers were 2-8 in games entering the third period when they were losing. Tonight, you picked up another win. That's 3 now. And look, most teams in the entire NHL aren't coming back from 2-goal deficits. I'll put together a little sheet and go through how many teams have been able to do what the best record is after 2 periods trailing, all that. But we know the way hockey works. It is really hard to develop a comeback effort, and not in the same ways that you can in the other sports because of the inefficiencies within the game. But you got that Hyman goal, and then you got a little bit of juice. Knoblauch threw Hyman together with Draisaitl and McDavid and said, we'll figure it out. We can get in this game. You get to intermission 2-1. And then Connor does what nobody else in the world does. When he gets that puck on his stick, he gets the jitterbug skates. He's got the stride going perfectly. He's got his stick bobbing and weaving to keep the puck moving. There is not anything any defender in this league can do to stop him. He is a unique, singular, one-of-one force. And that's the type of play that sets him apart from his contemporaries like McKinnon, like Matthews. And those guys can make plays, but Connor put his head down, deked through the mess, and got that puck in the back of the net and tied this game and gave the Oilers a chance to win it in overtime. And speaking of things that gave the Oilers a chance to win this game, we're going to hit Stuart Skinner in the next segment, so be sure to stick around. Today's episode is sponsored by PrizePicks. If you love sports, you're going to love PrizePicks, the best place to turn your sports knowledge into real money. Whether it's hockey, football, or any of your other favorite sports, PrizePicks makes it easy to get in on the action. you can now win up to 1,000 times your money on PrizePicks. Plus, this holiday season, they're giving away $30 million in rewards during Picksmas and offering 2 free picks in December. And when your picks hit, PrizePicks makes it easy to cash out. You can get your money in as fast as 15 minutes. This week on PrizePicks, looking at the hockey board tonight, you've got the reeling New York Rangers and the Dallas Stars. You can do something like Adam Fox over 3.5 shots on goal, Igor Shesterkin over 24.5 saves, or maybe Jason Robertson over half a goal for the Stars. It's so simple to make picks and have fun with my friends while potentially cashing out fast. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNHL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's right, $50 instantly. PrizePicks. Run your game. Thank you to everyone who is hanging out on this Friday edition of Locked On Oilers as we are breaking down the 3-2 overtime win against the Boston Bruins. And lest we forget how that first period went down, massive kudos to Stuart Skinner tonight for giving the Oilers a chance to hang around in this game. And one of the real signs of a quality, thoroughly built team is that it's a different guy who can make something happen every night. And look, we all know what Stuart Skinner is and what he isn't. He is not a bell cow goalie. He is not Shesterkin. He's not Jake Ottinger. He's not Jeremy Swayman. He's not Vasilevsky. He is a slightly above average goalie that on occasion, like tonight, can elevate his game and he can meet the moment and give you an opportunity. You don't want to have Skinner play this way. I almost said Swayman there. You don't want to have Stuart Skinner play this well all the time because I just don't think he's capable of playing at this high of a level consistently. But every now and then, he's going to be able to dial it up. And that's really important if you're the Oilers on a few different levels. Number one, most importantly, you won this game. And yes, it's only 1 out of 82. They still got plenty more of these to go. There will be nights where Stuart Skinner is going to make you want to rip your hair out, but that's part of the goalie process. You know, there are only maybe 8 goalies in the whole league anybody feels particularly strongly about as far as being consistently good. And because of that, the middle class of goalies, which Skinner is in, I do think he's towards the upper end of that grouping. But when you have that tier of goaltender, the volatility is part of what you're getting. It's part of what you're paying for. You know, if the Oilers really valued the goalie position, they would have went out and got an improvement somehow, whether it be trade or free agency. But they feel that with Stu and the team they have, they can complement each other well enough that it's not an issue. And the goaltending has not been great this year for the Oilers. I think we can all agree that it's left something to be desired, that if the Oilers are going to go anywhere come May, June, they're definitely going to need their goalies to step it up a notch. And we've been very transparent about it here on Locked On Oilers that Skinner has historically gotten better as the season's gone along. December has typically been the best month of his career. When you go back and look at his 3 years as a starter, he's typically had December or April as his best months, and I do think that's fitting. I think somebody like Skinner is somebody who they are very confidence-based, and we said it in the first segment, I'll repeat it now. When you are a player that has confidence issues about your game, that's where you get in your own head, and that's where you start to struggle. You know, I said it on Monday, after the goal that banked in off his head from Sam Reinhart, Skinner immediately drooped his shoulders and pulled his mask up over his head because he wanted to disappear. He wanted nothing else than to disappear in that moment because he knew he let his team down. And it's really hard when you have a goalie who's volatile like this, who has the capacity to win you the game. I don't think it's that outlandish to say Skinner is one of the reasons they won tonight. You know, he had almost 2 goals saved above expected in all situations. You know, the Bruins scored 2. They had 3.78 expected goals in all situations by Evolving Wilds measure. We said 11-7 on the high danger chances for the Bruins. So that in conjunction with a reasonable effort from the guys up front, you're not drawing it up like this. You don't want to have to play like this all of the time, but having the capacity to do this and against a good team, you know, I know the Bruins on paper now aren't nearly as scary as they were a couple of years ago. No more Bergeron, no Krejci, all the guys that have cycled in and out of there over the years. But you still got Pasta, you still got Marchand. Elias Lindholm is a little overpaid and probably, frankly, a little overrated, but he's a quality NHL player. And the Bruins have enough NHL defensemen that they can really muck games up. You know, McAvoy, Zadorov, Brandon Carlo, all three of those guys, pretty good at defense, like actively defending defense. And when you have this kind of recipe where you know it's going to be a tight checking, not a lot of space, when you know you're going to have that type of game, to have your goalie meet the moment, that's really encouraging. And I don't expect a ton from Stuart Skinner most nights. You know, if the Oilers make him face 25 to 30 shots on goal and he saves 27 out of 30 or 28 out of 30 or 25, 22 out of 25, that's a reasonable ask for a goalie of Skinner's caliber. I don't think the Oilers can realistically expect him to be, a 915, 920-ish goalie. I think if it's 905 to 910, I think that's a perfectly reasonable ask, especially if the Oilers play the way they're capable of in front of him. Few breakdowns tonight, nothing outlandish, but Skinner definitely had more work than Jeremy Swayman did. If you look at the shot map, and I'm looking at the Evolving Wild shot map right now, the lion's share, I would venture to say the majority of the Bruins scoring chances came in that high quality area. Of all of their chances, I'm counting now, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. 22 of their scoring chances in all situations came between the circles and in the offensive zone, meaning really quality looks, a lot of stuff between the two circles in that slot area, which we know is where the most dangerous offense is from because it's the closest to the net. The closer you are to the net, the more valuable. That's how expected goals is calculated. Each of those scoring chances, you get an assigned value based on where it's from, on the shot comes from on the ice, based on historical data. So if a shot comes from a certain point and it has a 0.3 expected goals value, that would tell you, it's a really good chance. That's probably something within 5 to 10 feet of the net. And that means, based on historical data, 30% of the time that scoring chance results in a goal. That's why most individual expected goal chances are going to be very low. They're going to be 3-4%. So that would be expressed as 0.03 expected goals. And the bulk of scoring chances are going to be lower quality because it's so difficult to get to those dangerous areas of the ice. That's how the value is calculated. And Stu, you could say it. Skinner outplayed Swayman tonight. And that is something the Oilers can't take for granted. So that's another reason why you should feel really good about this win. Even though the Oilers didn't play great, they gave a really good effort in coming back. They picked up Stuart Skinner, who gave them a chance to win by keeping this a 2-goal game when they weren't really in it yet. And you add that all up, and you get great performances from McDavid, from Hyman, from Draisaitl. This is why you can't give up. This is why, even after the first month and a half where things didn't look great, and I still think they needed another defenseman because I don't know about Emerson and Stetcher as regulars come playoff time, but the potential for something is really starting to come together. And if you're an Oilers fan at this point in the season, you got to feel pretty good. We're going to take our final break on today's show. We'll talk about the upcoming 2 games over the weekend, Saturday and Sunday ahead of the Christmas break. We will be right back on today's edition of Locked On Oilers, where we've got your team covered every day. Get ready to tackle NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. The game Thursday night between the Chargers and Broncos was pretty good. Got 2 good games for you on Saturday. You got 1 o'clock. You got the Texans and CJ Stroud heading to Arrowhead to take on the Chiefs, where the Chiefs are 3.5-point favorites. And then later in the afternoon, between the college football playoff games, the Steelers heading to the Baltimore to take on the Ravens, where the Ravens are 6.5-point favorites. Big game in the AFC for seeding purposes. The Ravens might be able to stay in the division race. And then Sunday afternoon, you have a real old school toilet bowl. The Jacksonville Jaguars heading to Vegas to play the Raiders. Mac Jones and the Jacksonville Jaguars, 1.5-point road underdogs heading to Vegas to take on the Raiders. You can get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. It's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Thank you to everyone who is hanging out on this Friday edition of Locked On Oilers ahead of the weekend. And again, like I said the other day, if this episode is a little bit choppy, if you're watching on YouTube, I am still battling my allergies. I'm not sick because every time I've left the house, it is immediately cleared up. So it's got to be something in the house that's giving me allergy issues. Alas, you got a real chance here now if you're the Oilers. You want to start stacking wins and making progress on your season. You've got the Sharks and the Senators back to back. Then you have the Kings, the Ducks, Utah, the Ducks, Seattle. That is a real opportunity to start putting some wins together against some mediocre or outright bad competition and making progress in the standings. And look, it is very early for the Oilers this season. It is only December. They have 50 games remaining. They have 40 points in those 50 games. When you look at the teams ahead of them, the Kings, who they play late next week after the break, they are 2 points behind them. They are 5 points behind the Golden Knights. If the Oilers can start to string some stuff together and make their way up those standings, they can really start to put themselves in a strong position, because the more room you bank yourself in the standings, the better prepared you are for future adversity. Because if you get out to a reasonable points cushion, where not even talking about the playoffs, talking about trying to get home ice in the first round, whether that be as the 2 seed where you would play the 3 in your division, or as the 1 seed and you would play one of the wild card teams, whichever that would be. You start building a cushion now. You give yourself the chance to make up for whatever might come up down the road. You know, if you have a bout of injuries, if you have a bad shooting luck, a bad goaltending luck, those points that you can bank, the more points you can bank, the sooner the better, because you never know what's down the road. The Oilers are very well equipped to handle in-game adversity, short stretches of adversity, but over the course of a long season, you don't want to be dependent on being able to make up some crazy deficit. And the Oilers aren't in a position where it'd be particularly fraught if they had a rough run. You know, if they lost like 3 out of 5, they have enough leeway with the standings, with the quality of teams in the NHL at large this year, that it wouldn't be a massive setback. But if the Oilers are going to go where we think they're going to go this year, where we're talking a second round, a conference final, a cup final, winning the whole thing, you start the foundational building now. You start beating up on these bad teams. You beat the Kings because that's a 4-point game in your division. You take advantage of the fact that if you win, you get a 4-point swing when they're 2 points ahead of you. And then you can start to put Vegas on the horizon as far as where we're targeting and where we're trying to go. You have a couple more games against Vegas. You still got plenty of games to go against the Sharks, against the Ducks, against the Kraken. And that's an opportunity. And it takes a quality team to take advantage of those opportunities. You know, we talk about luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. The Oilers did not have their A game on Thursday night. I would argue that was probably like a C+, B- game at absolute best if we're grading on a curve. And they still managed to hang around long enough that I don't want to say they backed into a win, but they willed themselves to a win. You know, McDavid put his head down and said, I'm getting this to the net. Even if I don't get the puck in, Hyman's going to be there and he might be able to jam it in. And lo and behold, Connor McDavid put his head down, got there, and got the puck in the friggin' net because that's how good he is. When you have the opportunities that the Oilers have in front of them, you have to take advantage of them or you are being wasteful. The Oilers are a really good hockey team. Over the last month, they have strung together some really quality victories against good opponents. And when you can beat Vegas and Minnesota and Tampa Bay and Boston, and frankly, you should have beat Florida. When you have all of that as a feather in your cap this early in the season, after everything that went wrong in the first 10 to 15 games, you really feel like you might be just starting to be at the beginning of scratching the surface of your capacity for your full season. You know, we talk about reaching your ceiling. How high do we need to start to eventually get there? And the capacity to realize the talent you have and use your abilities to the most you can, you know, finding a way to plug and plug and plug, you know, like McDavid says, dig in here. We're going to make this happen. And the Oilers found a way tonight. You got great performances. I know Draisaitl was relegated to some secondary points tonight. I think he had 2, if I remember correctly. Yeah, he had 3. I forgot he assisted on the first time in goal because he facilitated the Ekholm overtime game winner by staying on and getting that puck over to the middle and then the pass to set him up. He had the secondary assist there. Draisaitl with 3 assists, some great defense as well, and real effort. And that's something that is infectious because when you look at that, if you're a Kasperi Kapanen, if you're a Connor Brown, if you're a Jeff Skinner, and you see Leon busting his butt defensively, that's going to light a fire under you because if Leon has enough in his tank that he can go out there and facilitate 3 goals and then still bust his butt on defense and trying to set other guys up, that's a really infectious mindset to have when your star players have that will to win. And it inspires guys to follow and to keep moving and to not get caught up in whatever situation they're facing. That's something the Oilers cannot take for granted. But that'll do it for today's edition of Locked On Oilers. I will talk to you guys after the weekend. Looking ahead to Christmas, we'll have some lighter themed content going into the new year. Talk maybe a little bit about year in review, maybe a best of. We'll talk about what we would get the Oilers for Christmas and a whole lot more. So be sure to join the fun. If you could be so kind, please subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. If you happen to be watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button, hit the alarm bell out of pity for me and my red scratchy eyes and my scratchy throat. I will talk to you guys next week. Everyone have a fun and safe weekend. Get that Christmas shopping done. Don't wait till Tuesday. I'll talk to you guys next week.